This is going to be one of those videos, and I hope that you watch it and you listen to it and you understand that, one, I'm a very, very old person who's been playing games a long time, and it's sometimes disappointing to me what people see as new and things that get praised for that versus giving credit where credit is due. And I get it. History is erased so that people can sort of do the same thing over again and get credit for it, because nobody knows that these things happened before. And that's what I want to talk about in this video, as well as some of the things about Game Awards shows that I've seen happen over the years and why it's a shame for me personally that E3 isn't a thing anymore. So the Game of the Year, and I'm happy that a platformer won Game of the Year, because I believe platformers are the heart and soul of gaming. It's the type of genre that all of us started with. We all started with a little dot that's moving around and having to go from point A to point B. And they've evolved, obviously, different genres and things like that. But the platformer is the heart and soul of gaming. So AstroBot winning, to me, is great, because hopefully it means that Microsoft and PlayStation may get back to actually making platformers again, thinking about creating them, thinking about character-driven platformers like Jak and Daxter, like Ratchet and Clank, which they have. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, to me, is a much better game than AstroBot as an action platformer. AstroBot might be a little bit more platformer than action platformer compared to Ratchet. I don't know. That's just a personal thing. But for me, it's really strange because I'm seeing the praise for AstroBot. And on one hand, I'm happy about it. But on the other hand, when I first played AstroBot, I was blown away by, of course, the graphics. Not a big deal. You expect it to look good, and it's a Sony first-party title and all that stuff. And I played it, and I'm getting through the game, and I stopped at one particular section, and I thought to myself, I've played this exact section, not something similar to it, not a take on a past gameplay innovation, but the exact gameplay innovation taken right out of one game and placed in another. And I thought, okay, all right, let's keep going. And then I got to another part, and I thought, this is eerily similar to a game that I've played a few years ago. I mean, very similar. And you might say when you're watching this video, well, every game borrows from other games, and that's not true. This is where the history thing comes in. Because if you're just forgetting where things came from, you can always make that assertion. You can always say, well, I like the game, and every game takes, ideas from other games and innovates on them. But this isn't innovation. This is taking an idea and just duplicating it. It's not taking an idea and then putting your own spin on it. It's literally the same gameplay loop and gameplay mechanics. And then I played some more, and I thought, well, here's a game that deserves praise. I'm not trying to say it's not a good game, not trying to say you shouldn't like it, but it's definitely reminding me how old I am. Because when I say things like there isn't much innovation in AstroBot in terms of gameplay, and there are literal segments of the game ripped straight out of other games, particularly one game that I've played a few years ago that didn't steal those ideas when they made that game. They created them. And then I thought, it's interesting how nobody seems to be putting that together, and it's probably because it's a much younger generation and they haven't even played those games, or they feel like those games are on a kid system and we're not going to touch them, and this is the adult system, so this must be brand new, created by this studio, created by our favorite company, PlayStation, and it's amazing. And I get it. But for me, back in the day, there was a little studio named Naughty Dog, and they were thinking about making a character-driven platforming adventure game. And I remember reading about it and thinking, this is going to be difficult because they're referencing Mario, and they're talking about how great those platformers are, the simplicity, and then the evolution in that simplicity. And then I played the game, and I realized that they took the idea of a platformer, but they put their own spin on it. It was the first seamless open world, no load screen game ever in the Guinness Book of World Records for video games. So that had never been done before. And that opened up countless new gameplay mechanics just by default because it was seamless and open. So for me, having played that, read about that, experienced the launch and all of the innovation there and all of the talk around it, fast forwarding to now, 2024, and seeing AstroBot, I'm old. And it's a bit disheartening that most people either don't know that a lot of these ideas, and I'm all for taking an idea and putting your spin on it, but I'm not really into taking an idea and just duplicating it for an audience that doesn't know about those ideas and then taking credit for it. To me, that's a bit, you know what I mean? And again, it's a byproduct of, I guess, every era. Maybe my parents said the same thing when I was a kid and I was doing something that they did when they were kids and they were like, that's shit. We had it so much better. And by the way, that's not new, kid. That's old. Maybe I'm there and I get it, but I still feel like it's important to remember where things came from, because if we don't remember, then how do we know anything is new in the gameplay department? Or worse, there are people who just don't care. So that's my take on the game of the year, AstroBot. Good game, played it all the way through, but just, you know, as an older person, a bit precious some of the takes when it comes to Astro. The next thing is the Video Game Awards show in general. Now, these shows, for me, again, personally, have become just these devices to sell advertising to you. And the way that they make it palatable is by saying, here's some new games that are coming and we're going to show you them, which is great. I understand that because I come from the era of E3, going to E3, actually walking around, talking to the actual developers after the show and seeing them demo their game and talking to them, interacting with fans that way. Now it's very hands-off. You have to watch while all these other elite people in the industry give themselves awards. It's much like the Oscars. I mean, who the hell watches that anymore? But what was interesting to me is that they talked about games, you know, games that were going to be in the show, 2024 releases. But what was interesting is there's a time limit to these releases. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle came out in December, but it couldn't be at the show or even considered because there's a cutoff to the entries. And you would think that if it's the 2024 Game Awards, games that came out in 2024 would be included. But here's the kick. The reason there's a cutoff and the reason why the show is in December is because advertisers spend more in these months because of the holidays. You can say to an advertiser, well, for an ad spot, it would be $100 in January or February or March, but because it's December, it's $10,000 now. And they have to pay it. That's why there's a cutoff. That's why the show isn't in January, when it would make sense to have a 2024 Game Award show so that you can include everything. And Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was absolutely robbed because it is one of the best games that released this year in 2024. It has some issues, sure, but definitely deserved to be at the Video Game Awards show. So on the one hand, the issue is that some people don't care about the past. They only care about their brand being elevated and celebrated. And okay, and I'm old and I remember where things came from, and I would like a little bit more honorable mention. I mean, there's a reason why the team, Asobo Studios, referenced the past, kind of wink, wink, nod, nod, Nintendo. There's a reason they did that. I don't know if you caught it, but there's a definite reason they did that. And as far as game shows go, I do miss the more hardcore, more gamer-centric E3s the way they used to be. I don't like these pre-produced, advertised-laden shows that you just simply have to support because there's nothing else. It just doesn't make much sense to me. But again, these are opinions from somebody who's been playing games an extremely long period of time. So you take that with a grain of salt. Thanks for watching the video. Think about liking and subscribing so that I can go out and buy a pack of gum and be a real YouTuber. And I'll see you in the next video.